Okay, does anyone have any questions?
I have one. How do you get your clients to accept the length or the understanding of each aspect of your training?
Okay, so what I do, and when somebody calls and wants to become my client, they are sent a letter that overviews exactly what I do. And it's made very clear to them that I only see people under the guise of seeing them physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. I clearly lay it out that the paperwork must be filled out in full and that they must be willing to explore each of those areas of their life. And I explain that stress at the spiritual level channels itself down into the mental, into the emotional, into the physical, and that the physical body is the least creative, therefore to try to address problems at that level rarely has any long-term effect. So I essentially screen them, and then they screen themselves. What often happens is once they start filling out the paperwork and they see how deep and how intimate it is, some of them opt not to go forward. The reason they typically do that is because many people have actually got illnesses because it gives them power, it gives them leverage, even athletes. So for example, if an athlete's under a lot of pressure, I've worked with a number of athletes that had risen to a certain level of success, but then because the team owners and the coaches and the players expected so much out of them, they acquired an injury which took pressure off of them. And so oftentimes at a subconscious level, they don't want to recover from the injury because they know as soon as they do, that level of expectation is very high again. So when someone's using what's called the healing current of injury, they will see my paperwork and right away know there's no way you can mess with this guy. He's going to figure me out too quick. So people typically will self-exclude themselves by going through the process of qualifying to be my patient. I don't accept you as a patient until I see your paperwork, analyze it, and determine whether or not, A, I think you're ready to heal, and B, if I'm the right person to be your coach. If I'm not ready, but you're ready, in other words, I don't think I'm the right person, I don't have the right skill set, I recommend that you go see someone who I think is more suited to you, or I recommend that I do the part of your program that I might most be suited to, and then I suggest that I would share you as a client with somebody that's right for that particular case. So I rarely ever have problems with client retention because I screen them extremely carefully. And one of the reasons I do that is I offer a money-back guarantee on my work. And the guarantee is that provided you follow the program exactly as we laid it out together, if it does not work within the time frame we agree upon and give you the return for your time and energy and money investment, I will give you your money back. And I do that because it keeps me honest. Yeah. It keeps me from accepting clients and getting myself too busy to be paying attention to my clients, and it keeps me ethical. And you know, if I was running an insurance business where I can just run things through and have 5 patients going at once, it's very easy to become unethical in that environment. Yeah. So I've designed my entire institute, my entire training system to keep me honest, to keep my students honest, and to minimize having to work with people that truly aren't ready to be healthy yet.
Thank you. That's good.
Any questions, Gary?
Not at the moment.
I think some of my question was answered there initially, but I was wondering if I were to come to you initially, what are some of the steps we would do right away?
The first thing, as I said, is you fill out the paperwork and you pay the $1,500 deposit that it takes to even begin with me. And the reason I charge a $1,500 deposit is because I typically have to invest about 3 hours of my time to study your paperwork and begin to develop a game plan, right? Mm-hmm. Then once you're accepted as a client and I see you, I do a complete training on nutrition. I identify your metabolic type. I use a more advanced testing system when you're my client. I identify your metabolic type and I compare that to your diet log, and to the degree that your dietary practice is out of balance with your goals and objectives, I focus first on getting you to learn how to eat right and hydrate yourself right and learn about the lifestyle factors that have to underlie your conditioning program. Once we've gone through that, I begin a comprehensive physical assessment that includes an assessment of your cranial nerves and your entire musculoskeletal system. And no matter where your problem is in your body, I assess all parts of the body because the body is a holistic, fully integrated system. So it doesn't matter if your big toe hurts. I'm going to check your eyes. I'm going to check your teeth, your breathing, your cervical function, your shoulder function. I'm going to check the entire biomechanics of your body so I can look for patterns of dysfunction. I'll also be checking your movement patterns. So I check your musculoskeletal system, such as each of the joints, your flexibility, your range of motion. I look at your posture. I do other special tests that are too complicated to explain right here. Then I do a movement pattern assessment like we did with you here, but I include all the primal patterns, and to the degree that you don't do well in the primal pattern testing, that triggers me to put you through an infant development testing program. Once I've got your motor skills assessment, your musculoskeletal assessment, your neurological assessment, your diet and lifestyle assessment, I also look at the 5 most stressful events in your life, and then I do a spiritual assessment where I look at your chakras and your overarching concepts of who you are and what's important to you in life, what you think your purpose in life is, where you're going, what your goals are, and what your objectives are. And before we begin the corrective phase, I get very, very clear with each client on what are your core values, what are your I goals, what are your I needs, and what is your overarching dream. In other words, how can I anchor you into your program so that you feel that you're doing it for you, not for me, or not for your husband, or not for your dad, or not for your coach. So the most important thing that I can do out of all of this is clearly establish motive that you are congruent with. At that point, we're ready to really begin the process of teaching you how to eat, how to move, and how to be healthy. Any questions?
I got a twofold question.
It's Elizabeth, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
always a twofold. So it kind of builds upon what you were just saying. One is that there's a readiness, obviously.
Yes.
So if someone's not ready to come to you, but do you do anything to help promote their readiness? And then coupled with that is that usually the health practitioner themselves in this field, we're usually the ones that have most of the deficits ourselves. Obviously, sitting here, we all could probably fit in somewhere saying that we have a deficit. So how do you actually, how do you promote readiness, one, and then how do you create a space that you don't transfer your stuff to the client, and maybe how do you make sure that you're actually the right person? So,
Okay, those are multiple questions.
Yeah, multiple, always.
Okay.
You can yes, no them if you want.
No, I'll give you the answer. The first component of the question was, refresh my memory now, because there was
Promoting
like 5
readiness,
questions.
which
Yeah,
could be
okay, yes.
within the healthcare professional or even within the client
Here's how I
themselves.
promote readiness. I establish motive. Okay, I don't believe in promoting readiness, because that essentially means that I am trying to create something in you that wasn't there before. To the degree that you promote readiness, you usually are going to have a backfiring, because promoting readiness works until the client has to do something they don't want to do. Okay, so an old business saying, the difference between a wealthy person and someone that's not wealthy is that wealthy people are willing to do what the other people won't do to be successful. So once I identify what your motive is, then I identify what you're willing to do, and in my paperwork I ask you who will support you. Okay? So the first thing I do is establish motive. Why do you want to get better? Who will support you in getting better? Once I understand who will support you and what your motive is, then I'm in position to determine whether or not your motive is actually likely to be strong enough to take you through the process that you need to go through. For example, I work with a lot of neurologically impaired people, spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, and these are very challenging things to work through, and most of the people that have those injuries that come see me are professional athletes that have been severely injured. So I have to establish motive, and I let them know right up front. The chances of you getting back to your sport are slim, very slim, because for someone with an injury like a spinal cord injury, a broken neck, to be able to walk again would be a miracle, let alone ride a skateboard or a motocross bike. So what I do is I get clear on how motivated they are to do what's almost unachievable, and I get clear on who it is that's going to help them. And if they, for example, don't have enough help to do what I think they need to do, I make it clear to them that you're going to need someone to support you, or you're not likely to make it through the challenging points of this program, which is the points that are essential to get better. And then if their motive isn't really clear or sound or legitimate, then I query them and I ask them to really get clear. So I often give them homework to do to make sure that they have a clearly established motive. Because at my level of personal, professional, and spiritual development, I am not motivated by money. I don't work for money. Yes, I have to pay the bills like everybody else does, but I have enough clients after me every day that I can pick and choose. What's most important to me is that I help people become whole as human beings, because each person that I bring into wholeness becomes a healing force for every other living being on the planet. So I have to be very careful with my time, because I'm actually looking at humanity. I'm looking at all the exercise and healthcare professionals like you that need help. So if I take you on as a client and you fail in the program because you're not ready to accept responsibility for yourself, then I haven't done any of your peers a favor, because as soon as I return you out into the program, out into the world without having successfully accomplished the program, their faith in me as a healthcare professional is diminished, and their faith in you is diminished as well. So to protect me and to protect you and to protect humanity, I only take clients on that I think actually are going to be successful because they're truly motivated to take responsibility for themselves. That's what health is, taking responsibility for yourself. What was the other part?
You answered it.
Okay.
Do you have a suggestion into how to deal with different personality types? Like earlier you mentioned type A's.
Yes. I'll use a running shoe metaphor. Whatever's missing in your foot, you need to buy in a shoe. Okay? So if you've got a soft, mushy foot, a flat foot, you need a board-lasted shoe, because that's a stiff, supportive shoe. But if you've got a high-arched, rigid foot, wearing a stiff shoe is a great way to get injured, because it over-stiffens the system, so you need a flexible shoe. So if I work with a client that's a rigid, stuffy client, then I become more water-like. And if I perceive through my initial evaluation that I don't have that much water capacity in me, which is, it has happened several times that I have told clients I could not work with them. For example, I'm an ex-82nd Airborne Division paratrooper, so I have a fair bit of fire and discipline in me that I demand of my patients. The people that do not do well with me are people that were raised by military fathers. Because as soon as they get around me, they start having knee-jerk daddy reactions. So I would refer someone like that out to someone that's a little softer and a little more water-like in their personality. So I always have a decision to make as to whether or not I can appropriately coach somebody. And sometimes you can't figure that out till they're right in front of you. And I have told people right, hours or minutes into a program that I don't think that we're going to be able to effectively work together, and I refer them to someone that can work with them. And that's just how I do it. It's called being honest about who you are. Okay? The other thing is that a lot of people are very manipulative, and that's part of their personality profile. So what they do is they try to manipulate somebody like me, and you will have a really hard time manipulating somebody with the strength of ego that I have. And to the degree that I allow them to manipulate me, I actually slow their own growth and development, because that's usually how they got themselves in trouble in the first place. So I make it very clear to them who I am, what I do, why I do it, and what I can offer them as a coach. But if it's obvious that we can't work together because they're not willing to accept responsibility for themselves within the confines of my personality construct, then it's always better to refer them out. Do you have any questions, my dear?
I have a question, just
Yeah.
in terms of trainers that you actually coach
Yes.
to train. What do you recommend for them in terms of personal regeneration?
What I recommend is they read my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, and follow it religiously, because those are the key factors that all human beings must live by. That book is made of a compilation of my patient handouts that I developed over the last 24 years. I wrote that book maybe 3 years ago now. So what I did was I just took note of the things that I had to say to everybody. I had to teach everybody how to look at their poop so they could determine whether or not they were digesting and eliminating correctly. So I got so tired of trying to tell people what poop should look like, I had my artist draw all the common poop problems, and I had to tell people how to fine-tune their diet millions of times. So I designed forms to make it easy for me. So the entire book, all those diagrams, and they're all things that emerged out of me having to say the same things over and over again and essentially needing teaching aids. So I thought, well, this is what I have to tell everybody. And since I travel around the world giving as many as 100 lectures a year, I'm very familiar with the state of the healthcare professionals and the exercise professionals themselves. So I thought, why not just tell everybody in the world this? So now if you call me to be my patient, the first thing I say is, have you read my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, and live those principles religiously for 4 to 6 months? And if they say no, I say, well, I'm going to be honest with you. I am going to charge you $500 an hour to read that book to you. So if you really want an expensive bedtime story, come on down, because I have a use for your money. And reading is something I can do for $500 an hour. So it's amazing how many times people said, no, I have not read the book and I have not lived those principles. So I say, why don't you call me back and see how you're doing? And I've had people with neurological disorders, learning disorders, hormonal imbalances, cancer and everything end up calling me back 6 months later and say, you know what, it's a miracle. I don't need your help anymore. I fixed myself by following your book. And I said, there you go. Now, wasn't that cheaper than coming out and hanging out in my library at $500 an hour? That's how I do it. That's what that book is. That's why it's called How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. It is exactly how I live. That book is how I live. That's why at 46 years of age, I can still outperform most 20-year-old athletes. And it is really a shock to them. Usually don't believe that I'm 46, so I show them my driver's license. Now, that's not a very old man, but compared to people today, that's pretty old. I can still run the same speed I did in high school football, and I can lift more. Right? I'm not bragging, I'm just saying I'm normal. I'm normal. Humanity is sick. I'm just trying to get everybody to become normal. If I really wanted to train, I could be really strong. Do you have a question, Jeff?
I do, Paul.
Excellent.
I understand the value of your holistic approach.
Yes.
I understand it's probably taken you a long time to get to where you're at. And all of us personal trainers are seeking to expand our knowledge, potentially in the doctor movement side.
Yeah.
I have, my goal is to refer out at this point in time because this is my body of knowledge and it's outside my realm of expertise. You mentioned that if we're working with an exercise or developing a program without the knowledge of these entities, that we're playing Russian roulette.
It's true.
I'm concerned that if I've had good results with clients, and some of the people watching this DVD have had good results with their clients with this particular aspect,
Yeah.
it's our responsibility here. It's our responsibility to refer out at this point in time,
Yeah.
unless we have that body of knowledge.
Yeah. So the first thing that I always ask, because this question's posted to me quite often, how do you measure good results? How are you measuring that? Many people measure the fact that they have good results because the patient didn't complain or they did not come back. So that's assumed to be good results, okay? So until someone can show me objectively that they're getting good results, that's an emotional reaction to the environment, and a lack of information is often perceived as success, okay? So I don't mind when someone says they're getting good results, but I want to know what that actually means objectively, because it's a natural human instinct to not want to identify where you're not getting results. So when I look at the industry, and I'm a consultant at the highest levels and at the lowest levels, and I have all sorts of people coming through my training programs, from medical doctors to osteopaths to nurses to chiropractors, you name it. I can see how they used to measure the results, and then I can see how they measure results after I teach them to measure results. And in no case in my entire career have I had a single person go through my training and not come back to me afterwards and say, you know what, I thought I was getting good results, but I was actually not able to see what I was doing. Okay? The reality of it is, I'll give you a classic scenario. Someone goes to a personal trainer. They start with the personal trainer, and 3 weeks into the program, they start having terrible menstrual cramps. So who do they go see? They go see a gynecologist. How many of those people actually tell their personal trainer, oh, by the way, I don't know if it matters to you, but I've got terrible menstrual cramps that started since I've been seeing you. Now, you remember those 4 buckets? So what happens when someone's emotionally stressed, mentally stressed, studying, going through a divorce, and they start doing squats, lunges, throwing medicine balls around, and add a whole new level of stress physiology? Now, the trainer says, I'm successful with my client because 3 weeks ago she couldn't do a lunge, right? So there, where your focus is where your attention's at. The question is, though, what does it take to get Dr. Movement to even be able to play? Remember, Dr. Movement's the 4th doctor.
Right.
So success at the level of Dr. Movement cannot be measured until you measure your success with Dr. Quiet, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Happiness. So, you know, the query that you make is a legitimate query, but the answer that I have to share with you, I'm going to share with you personally on film because you're intelligent. Okay, I can't use this answer.
Now I know you're fooling.
Yeah. Now we're in the sales department. Okay. I'm going to be honest with you, though. It is a paradox, particularly in the West, and I teach all over the world. The Western mind is very, very pigeonholed through academia.
Sure.
So I'll quote Osho. Osho said, Lao Tzu is the beginning and the end of all religion. Now, what did he mean by that? He didn't mean there was anything wrong with the other religions. He just meant that if you're intelligent enough to understand 81 verses of poetry, you don't need any of the other religions. What I'm going to tell you right now is the same thing, but I'll say it in a different way. There's only 2 forces in the entire universe, yin and yang. Okay? There's only 4 doctors. Are you getting enough rest to facilitate the activities that you're doing? Are you eating well enough to facilitate the activities that you're doing? Are you moving enough to keep your body healthy? Right? And is the way you're living facilitating your inner sense of well-being and happiness? If you have clearly established core values, then you know how to spend your energy, and you also know where you're leaking, right? Someone who has clear values about what they want in a relationship with a partner knows when they're being abused and knows when they're being abusive. And anytime we know where our core values are being abused, we know where our stress is coming from. So there really is not much to do with anybody. I have to create large books and large manuals to sell highly educated people with master's degrees and PhDs on how to do 2 things, manage 2 forces and 4 doctors. All you need to do is teach people how much water to drink, how much sleep to get, when to go to bed, what is the importance of food quality, what's the right ratio for their body, do a movement assessment. Here's the exercises you're ready for. These are the ones you're not ready for. When I put all that together, you got health and well-being. If I miss any one of those components, then all I've got is partial success or temporary success. My goal as a holistic health practitioner and as an educator is to teach all my students and all my patients how to never need me again. If I'm successful with any one of my students, they don't need my coaching anymore. If I'm successful with any of my patients, they know how to shop, they know how to sleep, they know how to drink, they know how to move, and they know when they're themselves. Okay? That's a medical term.
Right.
Okay? So,
What's your name?
you know, that is how I see the world. And I am somebody that's very, very intensely committed to getting to the bottom of things the most efficient and most effective way. And I made myself committed by offering a money-back guarantee. The first visit with me ranges from $6,000 to $10,000. What does that mean? It means if I screw up, people will ask for their money back.
Sure.
Okay? So If you want to know how to use 2 forces and 4 doctors, start offering a money-back guarantee. I promise you'll figure it out quick.
Very good.
I hope that is the answer you want to hear. Any other questions?
Can you speak as to the relevance of spiritual fitness, physical, mental, emotional fitness as related to working with clients that you would need to be on a higher level than all of them to, in all those areas to be successful with them as a practitioner?
No. You don't have to be on a higher, nobody's on a higher level than anybody. That's a misnomer.
Fitter level.
It's basically what you've got to do is be completely congruent within yourself as to what you're offering to somebody else. So my definition of spirituality is taking responsibility for what you create moment to moment. To the degree that you're a professional, you know what you are capable of creating. And to the degree that you stick within those boundaries, you're honest, you're ethical, and to the degree that your offering isn't going to work, you and the client figure it out. And to the degree that it does work, you figure that out too. And that's how I see life.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, guys. Appreciate your help. Thank you. All right, man, we're saying yes. How to say yes? Yes. Yes. Yes.
Kara. Oh, I just wanted you out.
Yes. Woo.